All right, guys. Whiskey has its strongholds: Kentucky, Tennessee, Scotland. But every once in a while, someone decides to challenge the map. Cedar Ridge is proof that Iowa belongs in that conversation. And at the helms, its head distiller, Murphy Quint, carrying not only the family name, but the weight of putting the entire state on the whiskey stage. My first question, Murphy, when you step back from the barrels and the mash bills, do you ever think whether you're building a distillery or an Iowa legacy?
Great question. It's a big question. And you know, we're the easy answer is we're trying to do both. We are trying to build an Iowa legacy for sure. Iowa is extremely important to us. We have a ton of Iowa pride, and everything we're doing is we're trying to represent the state. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to show people that great whiskey is made here and can be made here, and it should be made here. I mean, we grow more corn in the state of Iowa than any state in the United States. We grow more corn here than pretty much any country grows. So it makes a lot of sense for us to produce whiskey here from that grain that we're making. So we are doing a little bit of both. And I've been talking a little bit about stuff like that. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary, and someone kind of asked me a difficult question. It's, what does this all, what is this to you? What is Cedar Ridge? And I kind of had to stop and think about it. And what it is to me is the land here that a whole community of people have helped develop on. This property that we have in Swisher, Iowa, that started out as this blank canvas that was originally just some vineyards that my parents had planted, and it has evolved into about a 75-acre campus with like 10 buildings. We have pivoted several times along the way to become something that we didn't even, originally see happening. But what I think this place is the community of people that have developed this land and helped create this whole thing that is Cedar Ridge. And, kind of going full circle, this community has built a distillery that is creating a legacy of whiskey in the state of Iowa.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but Cedar Ridge was the first distillery to open in Iowa since Prohibition. Yes, sir. Do you feel the weight of that, of carrying that torch? Do you feel that weight?
Yeah. I mean, there definitely is weight on that. And to me, it's not so much about being the first, but it is about representing this state. It is such an important place to me. And I think it really is to everyone in the state of Iowa, because we have a tendency to historically kind of be ignored. We're known as a flyover state, which I think is silly, because it truly, this state is incredibly beautiful. There's a great food scene. There's a lot to do here. Unbelievable place to raise a family. And so anything that I can do, anything that we can do here to help put our own state on the map and show people outside of the state of Iowa some of the good things that can come from here. I mean, I think that's really important. And so, yes, there is quite a bit of weight on our shoulders, but not only us. Every restaurant, every bar, every concert venue in the state of Iowa, I think they feel that same way. We all really want to represent this state, this community that has been overlooked for way too long. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going off my script here because this totally turned me into Iowa head, if you want to call it that. I'm from Texas, and I'm a Texas boy through and through. We love our George Strait. We love all of the things, right? We love Texas barbecue, all the things. But I know that you guys did a collaboration with a small band known as Slipknot. And how was it working with them, especially Sean, aka Clown?
Yeah.
How was it working with them? This is not in my notes, so I'm ad-libbing this whole thing. How was it working with them? Because I mean, anybody who's a metalhead for a second knows Slipknot, right? I got into their first album, and then they got a little mainstream for me. But at the same time, I'm an old soul, so how was it working with them? And I actually did a whole podcast about whiskey and music put together, and I picked your Cedar Ridge, Iowa, number 9 or whatever, the reserve the more expensive one because I'm bougie, right? But how was it working with them for one, and also did it really showcase not only Cedar Ridge but Slipknot?
Yeah, it has been an incredible partnership working with the Slipknot crew. And to your point, Sean, aka Clown, I mean, he kind of headed up the project. This was it was really important to him and kind of a passion project for him, which I think is really cool. But it's been a wild ride, and yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, Slipknot, especially in 2018 when we started working together, in 2025, I think most whiskey aficionados, at least in the U.S., are pretty aware of who Cedar Ridge is at this point. But in 2018, I wouldn't say that was the case. And,
no, it wasn't.
Slipknot could have worked with anyone. I mean, they could have absolutely partnered up with someone in Kentucky. They're a globally recognized band with a global following. So, I mean, pretty much anyone could have worked with them. But they, like I was saying earlier, they thought it would be cool to work with an Iowa distillery. And we thought it would be very cool to work with an incredibly popular Iowa band, obviously. So right off the bat, it was just a home run. It worked really well. I've talked about this a few times on a few podcasts, but the first time, I also discovered Slipknot, I think in like 5th grade, 6th grade, and became a fan. And I had never really seen them outside of, their stage presence. And so when they were first coming out, I was a little like, what are these guys going to be like? Are they going to be super intense and wild? Because that's their personality on stage. But when Sean came out, it couldn't have been more the opposite. He was the nicest guy I've ever met. He still is, wildly creative, but incredibly friendly and nice. I mean, it immediately gave me his number. He's like, you should bring your wife. We'll grab dinner sometime. He was just Iowa nice is the way that we phrase it. So, working with them has been incredible. I think it benefited both parties. Obviously, they put us on a lot of radars that we wouldn't have been on previously. And then I think that, we helped them penetrate the whiskey community. That with brands that have a celebrity behind them, that's something that's really important and becoming more difficult to do, is to take that product that is endorsed by celebrity and get it the respect of whiskey people, because there have been so many products along the way that kind of had a celebrity's name behind them, but the celebrity really wasn't that involved. We really wanted to avoid that, and they were incredibly involved from the very beginning. So all the things kind of worked well together, and like I said, it was a home run really from day one.
Yeah. That to me just showcases not only what you guys are trying to do, but what Slipknot is trying to bring it back home, because like you said, they could have picked anybody. They could pick Buffalo Trace or whoever and made some commodity brand, slap a label on it. It's fine. Run it through the mill like everybody else does, because you see all of these celebrity whiskeys out there and you're like, man, I don't know. Cause I've tried, on that episode, I tried quite a few of them, and there was some that were just like, man, this is just the same. And I'm not to poo-poo MGP because they're doing an amazing thing, but this is the same MGP 95.5 over and over again, and it's like, at some point you got to be a little bit different. And of course, Slipknot being the people that they are, they're going to be a little bit different and take it back home, which to me is so cool. And I will tell you, I still have a little bit left in that bottle. But it is such a cool representation of not only what you guys are doing, but what they're doing. And I understand not everybody is Slipknot's flavor, but also not everybody is Cedar Ridge's flavor. And that's 100%. And that's kind of where you want to be, right? You want to be just niche enough to where you're like, the whiskey nerds love you, but also you're not in the mass market. You're not having to produce, 40 pallets a day to get out the door. Like, you want to be small enough to where you can still do your quintessential stuff, but yet not so small to where you're like, who are they again? So exactly. I applaud you for branching out, because like you said, it helped you in the long run, but it also helped them for a whole nother market to get whiskey people into their music, which is pretty cool. So Iowa is better known for corn than whiskey. What are some misconceptions that Iowa whiskey that drives you nuts?
Misconceptions specifically about Iowa whiskey?
Yes.
Well, that I was talking about this earlier today with someone. I don't know that there is this same sense these days, but 10, we'll say 8 years ago, before I got back into production, and I'll touch more on that in a second.
Okay.
Around 2014 to 2016, I was working more on the sales and distribution side. My role was more like a brand development side, and I was kind of waiting to get back into my production world, which is where I'm happy to be. But I was traveling the country trying to get people all over the place to try Cedar Ridge, and no one had ever heard of it, which made sense. But I remember specifically one trip to New Jersey. I was working with some distributors out there, and we went to a few like real whiskey geek places. And I was like, hey, I'm from Cedar Ridge. It's my family business. Try our craft whiskey. And they were like, I don't even want to try your craft whiskey from the state of Iowa. There's no chance that's going to be good, And to a certain extent, I mean, I kind of understand where they're coming from. I mean, at that point in time, there was a lot of new whiskey coming onto the market. A lot of it was very young. And even ours, maybe it would have been slightly underwhelming at the time. It's tough to say. But I remember back then immediately getting written off because we were this like new whiskey from Iowa. What are you talking about? Yeah. And so that was something that was really, really difficult to get over at one point in time. But today, I would argue that the script is completely flipped on that, kind of going back to your whiskey or your music analogy that you were just talking about. The whiskey scene right now is a lot like music in the sense that, we all look for music and bands, musicians that people haven't heard of. It's kind of fun to find one that is this hidden gem that no one knows of yet and introduce your friends to them. Well, that is kind of happening in the world of whiskey right now. There's so many whiskeys out there. It's kind of fun to find one before anyone else does. And so a couple years ago, all of a sudden this Iowa thing kind of started working to our favor. We're this distillery that no one knew that well in a state that people aren't super familiar with. And we were able to flip the script because of it, which worked perfectly for us. Yeah.
That's so amazing, because at the end of the day, it turns into like, you got to keep doing what you're doing, because you could easily turn into like the mass commodity distillery, just doing contract distilling for everybody else and not have that Iowa flavor. Right. So it really turns into, what are we trying to do here at Cedar Ridge? So I want to take it back to the beginning. The early days, right? Let's talk about Cedar Ridge at its infancy. Obviously it's a family business. So tell us a little bit about, is this what you grew up in, or is this something that you just kind of fell upon? Were you in IT before and now you're doing this? Or did you were you 6 years old turning the mash tun or the grape tun or whatever you call it?
Yeah, yes, sir. It's kind of, I have a very unique entrance into this industry. One of my favorite things about the whiskey industry in particular, and I've worked at two different distilleries at this point in my career, and I've noticed that it's kind of the same for everyone. The way that people get in this industry is usually, I was an engineer at a company and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And so I wanted to switch things up and go work in whiskey. Or, I was an accountant doing this, and it just, I just wanted to chase a dream and work in whiskey. So a lot of people, almost everyone, has kind of pivoted into this industry. I was in a very unique situation that Cedar Ridge was started by my parents when I was really in middle school. So we opened selling stuff in 2005, but the real original Cedar Ridge was more like 2001, 2002. And that's my parents acquired the land that I'm currently sitting on right now with a dream to plant vineyards out here. They, my parents were kind of in a state of panicking about their 401ks. My dad was a CFO at a different business. My mom was a very good school teacher, and they were kind of doing that, but they were talking about their futures and retirement, and will we ever even be able to retire and stuff like that. And they kind of came to the conclusion together that, well, if we're never able to retire, if we're able to maintain vineyards and maybe even open a small winery, that would be a good way to have to work the rest of our lives, to do that. And which, as someone who I'm getting into my, late 30s now, I'm starting to see where their heads were at on that. That's starting to make a lot of sense to me. I get the sense of wanting some control over what you're doing with your time and your investment and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But so anyway, when they brought that up in 2001, I would have been in late middle school. And the way that I always phrase it is, I mean, when they originally told me they were going to do that, I was in middle school. I was like, oh, that's a classic weird parents being weird type move. Parents are weird. They do weird things. Mine are going to start a weird vineyard, and that's just how it is. And so I kind of just chalked it up to like, their parents being parents, whatever. But as time went on, they started needing my help a little bit more, and same with my siblings, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, everyone kind of jumped in and helped and, planted these vineyards and put in these posts and all this stuff. Well, fast forward from 2001 to 2005, at this point, we've got these grapes that are producing wine, or, they're producing, we've got these vines that are producing grapes. Let's make some wine and let's get a product out on the market. And so what they did is they rented out a literal garage in downtown Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There is a business there that is a liquor store called Ben's Beverage Depot. It's a really cool place, but they have this little side garage off to the business that they run, and they rent it out. Well, we were like, that kind of works for us. We don't need a lot of space. No one knows us yet. We're small. Let's just rent out this garage. We'll produce stuff in there, and we can literally sell it out of the liquor store that's next door. Anyone who visits us, we can walk them to the bottle that's on the shelf next door, and they could buy it there. And so it was this ultra small, like ultra niche family concept. My parents were still working their normal jobs, and we were doing this little wine thing on the side. But right as we opened up, they had this idea, to differentiate our small family-owned winery. Maybe it'd be cool if we were also a small distillery. And, so we'll make some vodka, some gin, some rum, and we'll mess around with some other stuff, like a small amount of bourbon and small amount of barrel-aged rum, just like a couple barrels here and there. So It started out as small possibly gets in this industry, especially for back in 2005. And what really flipped the script, though, is around 2009, 2010, we released our first bourbon to the market, and people came out supporting that product like they have never supported us before. And that kind of got our wheels turning, like, hey, what we're doing here, making a bourbon from Iowa corn, that really makes sense. Right now, Iowa's the corn state. No one here is producing bourbon. We're buying bourbon from other states to bring it to here. That's silly. We could produce some here. And like I said, consumers really responded to that. That was the first time we ever had a line out the door. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, we saw that was our big break, our big opportunity. And we absolutely hit the ground running after that. We knew that bourbon in particular was our future. And that's what we started going all in on at that point.
Awesome. I mean, and that's just kind of how it is. It's one of those things where you're in the family. Guess what? You're in the family business as well. Like you're gonna work for your food over here. So that to me is super cool because you could outsource a lot of stuff. You could do all this stuff, but they wanted to do it all in house, and they wanted to try and keep it all in house. So was there a time that you didn't want to follow the family path?
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
Every day.
Tuesday, no. I am absolutely in it for the rest of my life at this point, as long as I'm fortunate enough to keep doing it. I mean,
absolutely.
Who knows what the future holds, but I can't imagine doing anything else now. But that wasn't the case at all when things got started. I mean, in 2005, at that point, I would have been in high school. I just had a license to drive. I mean, so what I was doing is I was helping out my family and earning a couple bucks to fill up my gas tank and hang out with my friends. My thought process was not, hey, I'm going to run this business the rest of my life.
Right.
A turning point, though, what really changed that and made it so that I was all of a sudden very intrigued by this was in 2009. I went to my first distillers conference through ADI, American Distilling Institute, in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was at this point in college, but I went out there to this distillers conference, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a community of distillers from states all over the country. We had been stuck in Iowa where it was really just us. And this was the first time I got to meet all these other people. And I was just blown away by the community and how fun these people were and how cool they were to hang out with. And there was one group in particular that I'll call out. And that is a group from Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey. They were there. And this was the early days in American whiskey, at least outside of Kentucky, in the craft scene. And most of the people at this conference were dressed, in flannel shirts and jeans and, unbranded attire and just kind of being there because they like this industry, yada, yada, yada. But the group from Stranahan's, there was probably 5 to 8 of them, and they were decked out in Stranahan's gear. They were passed around Stranahan's bottles. They found a way to dominate that conference. And I was completely captivated by what they were doing. I was like, these people, what they're doing, that is the future. And that is what everyone should be doing at conferences like this, is figuring out how to spread the word about your brand at a community event like this. And so I was in college when I saw that, and I was completely blown away by it. And I remember, to kind of get back to your question of, whether or not I was going to work at my family business the rest of my life, I remember seeing that and saying, I'm going to go work for Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey. And eventually I did. But I was so captivated by what they were doing. I knew at that point that I was really interested in this industry long-term, and that I had to go there and see what they were all about.
Absolutely. Because Stranahan's, as we all well know, is a cornerstone in American Single Malt. Like, they are the one of the first, right? There's a tie for first. Anyway, it's fine, but they're one of the first. They're one of the first. And I was listening. I was listening to one of your episodes very recently where you said something that I really agree with. I think I would probably say that McCarthy's was the first, but I think the point you made is the one I agree with, and that's that Stranahan's was probably the first that was available to pretty much anyone. They were the first to make it on a large scale, so that if you live in upstate New York, you can buy Stranahan's. They were probably the first single malt to do that. Absolutely, because like McCarthy's and St. George and all of these guys who started kind of the market, they were doing amazing things, but it was very localized. It wasn't a huge conglomerate. Whereas you just said, like Stranahan's, they were all branded out and they were handing out bottles because they knew it's all about the marketing, which we can get into that later. But it's all about the marketing your brand. The whiskey has to be good, for one. That's the first thing. The whiskey has to be good, because if you can't show what you're doing, obviously that's a faux pas. But at the same time, they knew what they were doing and they did it well. Yeah. And they continue to do it well. I understand that it has changed hands since then, and blah blah blah. And we can talk about that, but it turns into a thing to where you're like, okay, you take a step back and you're like, there's people doing really cool stuff out here, and we're talking about Cedar Ridge. Obviously, we're not talking about anybody else, but you guys are doing a cool thing out here. Okay, how do we pinpoint that and become solely what we're doing? But be able to reach these other people. And so when was that pinnacle point when you guys realized, okay, for one, hey, this whiskey is a thing. It needs to get to people. How do we market that to the people? And how well was it received?
And I think you're constantly learning that stuff as you go. Like I said, the first real moment where we were like, there might be something here, was when we released our first bourbon in the 2009, 2010 area. That was the first time we had a line outside our door for a new product release, and we were kind of woken up by it. But for me personally, it was actually when I was working the night shift at Stranahan's, and I started seeing people camping out in alleyways 2 nights in advance, waiting for their snowflake releases. That woke me up to whoa, there's a whole world of people here that want to try unique, one-of-a-kind whiskeys. And eventually, when I came back to Cedar Ridge in 2014, that is when I was able to convince not only my family, but our board of directors that we need to go all in on whiskey production around the clock. And that in 2014, that was still pretty early to this game, believe it or not. And so we knew from our success in bourbon, I knew from what I had seen during my time in Colorado, and we kind of knew where this was all headed, that we were at the beginning of a boom in the whiskey industry. And meanwhile, we're set up, we have a distillery, we have the capacity to start doing this. And so in 2014, that's when we decided to put all the chips on the table and go around the clock in whiskey production.
Awesome. So you still have a winery, correct? Like you're still making wine and stuff like that. So it's not like you close the winery down and you're just doing distilling. And you're not only making whiskey, you're making other things as well, right?
Yes, sir. So a couple things on that. We are still to this day a winery, and it is an extremely important element to our business and our company in general. Our winemaker is a guy named Kent Falker, who is probably the sharpest person I've ever met in this industry. Not only is he a brilliant wine mind, but he's an incredible educator, and he inspires me every day on that front. But he is cranking out amazing wines still to this day. We obviously, our business model has flip-flopped from we started out day one as being extremely wine focused, with like this small hook being the distillery, and now today, I mean, we're a distillery that sells to 35 states and 5 different countries, and our wine is just sold in the state of Iowa. So when it comes to like case sales and revenue and stuff like that, there's obviously a major difference there. But the wine element is incredibly important to our business still to this day, because our whiskey is in large part influenced by it. And I'm sure we're going to get to some of that as this discussion goes on, but we're pretty well known for not only blending but cask finishing. And the cask finishing program that would not exist in our company if not for coming out of our winery. At one point we had these awesome wine barrels available, and it's like, well, let's start cask finishing some bourbon and some single malt and things of that nature. But in addition to that, yes, we do still make a few other things, incredibly small scale. I mean, this year we'll produce a little over 1,440 barrels in total. 1,400 of them will be whiskey. The other 40 will be a couple barrels of rum, a couple barrels of brandy. For the most part, the reason why we produce those is because we have a small group of fans that have been on board with them forever, and we don't want to get rid of that. But we also want to serve them in our tasting room. We get 125,000 visitors a year through our tasting room and through our wedding venue. And sometimes those people don't want whiskey. Sometimes they want a vodka soda. Sometimes they want a rum and Coke or whatever. So we produce those things to have them available for our wedding venue and our tasting room. But we're obviously very whiskey and wine focused outside of that. Yeah.
Awesome. So how is the crossover? And I guess this is getting into the wine finishing, right? Because I can tell you, and this is off script again, but I have a bottle that was given to me by Germ from Freedom Malts. And I don't know if you know Germ very well, but he gave me a bottle of your quintessential brandy trifecta.
Oh, yes, sir. All right.
Okay, so let me talk about that one for a second. Okay, I'm a big ASM fan, so obviously on the table is ASM, but it is apricot, pear, and whatever, something else brandy finished, and it is. I gave it as a blind sample to somebody recently, and they thought that it was a extremely well-aged Highland Scotch. So, I mean, kudos to you for that. But also, like, on these finishing things that you do, obviously you're making brandy so that you can have a brandy cask to put some whiskey in, right? But at the same time, it's like, okay, so we're making a thing, we're doing a thing, but like when do you let's talk about blending then, but because how do you know what to put it in and then where to stop? Because I've seen, and recently I've seen this a lot lately. I know that, and this is not throwing shade to anybody, but American Bourbon Company just came out with their cigar batch, right? And it is finished in 5 or 6 different barrels, everything from Amberana to jackfruit. Okay, so where do you guys go? Okay, that's enough, let's stop. And how do you because obviously you always think, hey, the whiskey can be better, going through this or whatever. When do you know to stop?
It's a really good question, and it's probably the hardest part about this, at least for me personally. So I am I am on the blending side. I've got a really, really great team led by a guy named John Rupp, who run our distilling all day, all night. But I have the amazing pleasure of doing all of our blends when it comes to bourbon, rye, single malt, but in this case specifically single malt. And my philosophy on that, and kind of to answer your question, where to start is easy. And I'm trying to fill up as many different secondary casks, aka finishing casks, as humanly possible. I'm constantly exploring new offerings, and if I don't like the flavors that they produce, I don't buy them again. If I really, really fall in love with what they produce, I start acquiring more of those casks, and I start to kind of develop a bit of a skill set and a knowledge base of how to utilize them.
Right.
As far as where to end, that is the hardest part. And it used to be a real challenge for me, because one of the beautiful things with American Single Malt is that you can always shape a whiskey more. You never really have to be done. You can always be like, I really like it, but I could make one or two more small tweaks right here.
Yeah.
It's really hard to let that go. And so I've kind of developed a bit of an outline that I follow that's made that a lot easier. And so what I do is I start by creating an extremely tight vision of what I want a final product to taste like. A good example of this would be our Untitled Cigar Malt project, which is probably our most popular release ever. That one went really, really well. But it wasn't just about releasing, a cigar blend. What I wanted to do with that one was I wanted to create a single malt that drinks like a cigar smokes, if that makes sense. I wanted it to be extremely big and bold up front. I wanted it to be heavily tobacco influenced, and I wanted a finish that lasts forever long. Like the longest finish you've seen in whiskey is what I wanted on that, because when I smoke a cigar, if I smoke a cigar right now, 7:30 p.m., I will be able to taste it tomorrow morning still. That's just kind of how it works for me. And so I wanted to create a whiskey that was very similar. So that was my extremely tight vision on how to do that. Now, what I'm going through the process of doing these blends, which usually takes from about 4 to 6 months to get it dialed in to exactly what I want. What I'll start to do is I'll take that extremely tight vision for the final product, and I'll start to let it loosen up just slightly. And the reason why I start to kind of compromise on that vision is because when I'm about 80%, 90% of the way done, I want to start to open up possibilities for happy accidents, to quote the man himself, Bob Ross. I want to, if there's a good opportunity to take a slight twist here where I didn't originally plan to, I want to allow myself to pursue that. So I'll start to let go slightly of that really tight vision, but I don't stop until I'm obviously satisfied with the product in the end. But it all starts with that extremely tight vision at the beginning. And I think the Untitled Cigar Malt project is probably the best example of that from start to finish, having that vision and then spending months chasing it. My team, especially, I'll give a shout out to our marketing director, Megan. She'll always check in with me and ask, how the blend's going. And I have a bit of a process, or kind of an outline that I'll follow, where I start out extremely confident with my vision. I work really hard on it. I'm excited about it. About 3 months in, I'm depressed. I'm losing my mind. I'm not happy with where the product's at. About a month later, I'll start talking to Megan. I'll say, I'm honestly not sure that I'm good at blending whiskey. I think that I've been getting lucky this whole time. I'll start to it'll start to really mess me up mentally, because I have this vision and it's not coming to fruition. But I'll keep chipping away at it. People help build me back up a little bit. And then eventually things start to come back around, and I get really excited and passionate again. And ultimately I'll end up hitting that final mark that I originally envisioned. But it's like anything else. I mean, it's like training for a marathon or anything like that. I mean, there's a lot of hard work along the way, and at some point it gets really difficult. But when you keep going, you don't throw the hat in, you don't throw the towel in and give up. Eventually you hit your mark, and the feeling at the end is extremely satisfying.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, a lot of people call it hitting the wall, right? You hit that wall and you're like, man, I got to get over it or go under it, however we need to make it work just to get to the goal. Because like we all get it, in my day job, I'm a plumber. And so by trade, I'm out there digging ditches all day. And guess what? It's hot. I don't want to be digging ditches all day. So at some point I'm like, I got to do the job. Let's do the thing. And then you just persevere and move through it. So it's really cool to see that, like, it goes all, as we say, cattywampus. It goes cattywampus, and then you're like, I hate it. Let's just throw it away. It's all stupid. I don't want this. And then you're able to bring it all back into one cohesive, and then present it out there to the world. So how has that been received? All of your finishing series and stuff like that. How has that been received in the market?
So we've done, at this point in time, we've done 5 of the quintessential special releases. All 5 of them have been have won gold medals. All 5 of them have put us on radars that we had not been on previously. They've been incredibly successful for us, and all 5 of them, at some point during the process, I thought that this is absolute garbage and is going terribly. Just like we're talking about, it's kind of similar to like a writer writing a story where they start out super happy and halfway through, they're like, "This is trash. I got to start over." But all 5 of them, I dealt with that, and I worked through it and eventually got to the point where they were all great and have been extremely successful. For example, the first ever one we did was Pete and Cherry Married. That was the first ever quintessential special release, and it holds a special place in my heart because it was first. That one won Best American Single Malt at the World Whiskey Awards. Which is one of the biggest awards that a single malt can win. That kind of paved the way for the rest of it. The next 2 were Portside and Untitled Cigar Malt Project, and those both essentially went what I'll call whiskey viral, on Instagram, where they really took off, and so they've all been received really well, and they put us on a lot of radars that we weren't previously on. And I will quickly say, we just for the first time did the exact same thing, the exact same process, only with bourbon. So not with single malt, but with bourbon. And what I mean is we took bourbons from several different finishing casks, and we created a blend for our 20-year anniversary called our anniversary edition. And so this bourbon was a blend of Tokai finished, Ruby Port finished, Amontillado Sherry finished, and then a little bit of our double barrel bourbon as well, all blended together to create something really unique and complex as kind of a celebratory product. And that was also received really well. So these finishing casks and this blending that we're doing, it's really helped establish our company on more of a national scale. Whereas, in the state of Iowa, what we've really been known for is our 86 proof bourbon. That's really what's paid the bills and made this all sustainable. But these special releases and these cool blends of cask finishes we're doing, that's what's gained us a lot of respect and awareness from what I'll call whiskey aficionados.
Right. Because you can make a bourbon all day long, and as long as it's received well in the community, you're like, okay, we're doing a thing. But like, once you get past that, and I hate to say that because it kind of sucks for and I don't know if it's like this in other alcoholic beverages, but like I know that like in whiskey, especially, you start drinking like the lower proof stuff, like the Blantons or whatever. And then you're like, I want to try something with more flavor. I want to have more into that. So like your 86 proof, it's a great starter, but then people want more from you. And they're like, what can you do that's crazy and weird and different? So it's really kind of cool. But at the same time, it constantly keeps you working, which is good because it keeps your mind developing. So if you imagine you had to distill a whiskey inspired by your favorite movie, what is the movie and how do you translate that into a bottle?
I've got 2 favorite movies. I'll go with my all-time favorite being Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
There you go.
How you'd make one that is inspired or representative of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's a fun question, but I think it's got to be, something a little laid back. Ferris is a laid back guy, right? He's chill. He's not aggressive. So it's got to be something. It's got to be something chilled and laid back to represent that. But it's also got to, Ferris Bueller throws a lot of curveballs at you, man. He's kind of always up to something. I would probably go with like a second fill Ruby Port cask finished single malt that has a small amount of peat in it, just to kind of round it out and keep you on your toes. So it's a second fill cask. It's not going to be dark purple. It's not going to be overwhelming on the palate. It's chill, it's laid back, but it's got just a touch of peat in there to play with that sweetness from the port, and kind of, I think that would represent Ferris Bueller's Day Off pretty well.
Absolutely, absolutely. You nailed that out of the park. God, I threw that one at you, and I was expecting to be like,
yeah. No, I was not expecting the question. It was a good question. Yeah.
I mean, no. I'm like, wow, he knew exactly what I was going to say. I promise.
Hey, man, I like doing cast finishing blending, and I'd be happy. I might have to create one after Ferris Bueller now.
yeah. No, that's so crazy because, like, like when you think about trying to transpose whiskey into the culture, right? Everybody has a different take on it. Like most people think, well, it has to be Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 or Jim Beam White Label or whatever, because it's like you've seen it for 100 years, Mad Men and all the things. But like why can't an Iowa whiskey come in there and say, hey, we're a staple now? And that's really cool. And I will say that, like, in my whiskey circle, you guys are old dogs at this point. You guys are well respected in my community, especially. Maybe not in some of the other communities that are out there that are just hunting taters and stuff like that. But in my whiskey aficionado realm, you guys are the top contenders, right? And so for you to say that and be able to come out with something to where you're like, yes, this is what we would do, that just goes to show you guys' dedication to the craft that you guys are trying to produce. So let's go back to, okay, so let's say you're making a bourbon for me. It's a special project. You're making it just for me personally. What would the mash bill be, and would it be finished? Would it have any special casking or anything like that? Let me know what you got.
Making something for you. So I don't entirely know, and I don't want to for this exercise at least, but I don't entirely know what all you like and what all you don't like. For music though, were you saying that you do like some metal, or you do? All right. So I mean, if I was gonna make something for you today, not knowing really what you like and what you don't, I would probably do a blend of whiskeys, a blend of straights, and it would probably be bourbon and rye. And then I would do for something fun, because I mean, you're an experienced whiskey drinker. To shake it up, I'd probably do a blend of bourbon and rye with an Amontillado first fill sherry, because those are my favorite casks. But what you get there is you get something a little bit bolder, because it's not just a basic sweet bourbon. It's not just spicy rye. You get the best of both worlds. But then you get a nice, cool, authentic, 132-gallon Amontillado sherry button there to add a little bit something extra on top of it. So you kind of get a few different things going on. I'd probably want to try to throw something like that at you and see how it goes.
Well, I will tell you that I am a sherry nut. So
all right.
You nailed that one. And yeah, no, I love a good rye whiskey. I love a good bourbon. I love everything that, but I will tell you, total transparency, I don't know if I've ever had a rye that you guys have produced. Anyway, so just throwing that out there. Okay. So what has been your biggest influence as a distiller outside of family?
Outside of family, my biggest influencer as a distiller, I would have to go with a beautiful gentleman by the name of Rob Dietrich, who was the master distiller at Stranahan's when I worked there. He's still to this. I mean, he's currently the master blender for Blackened, which is associated with Metallica, and he's doing crazy cool things with them. But he showed me the ropes, not necessarily just in whiskey production and how to make good whiskey or anything like that. It was more, he showed me what was possible, and he coached me, I think, on management. He was an incredibly good manager of distillery operations, and that obviously is what I'm doing today, and I model a lot of that stuff after him. But he showed me for the first time that being a master distiller or a master blender, that is actually a viable career. In 2010, when I started, or I think I started working there in 2011. But when I started working there with him, I didn't really know that this could be this long-term career path, and one that you could kind of advance in, and one that you could kind of move from distillery to distillery in, almost like baseball. I played with the Yankees the last 3 years, and now I moved up the ladder, and I'm associated with the Cubs. There's this whole thing going on in the world of whiskey, and he really showed me that if you work hard and you really go all in on it, there's a lot of potential, especially right now while whiskey is booming. You can really make a career out of this. And so I watched him a lot when I was working with him. I watched him do his blends. I didn't get any hands-on experience or anything, but I watched him doing stuff like that. I watched him managing the team. And most importantly, I watched him interacting with consumers, which is an incredibly important thing for a master distiller or a master blender to do. That job description, that person usually ends up being what I would say is the bridge from distillery operations to educating consumers. They end up being basically the best brand ambassador for any distillery. And it's important to have someone who can run the distillery, but also go to a bar in Texas that sells a whiskey pairing dinner, and to go out there and wow people and show them what your product's all about and how it's different. He showed me that was all very possible, and he was an absolute master at it and still is. Yeah.
Absolutely. I have actually had, and I need to go back into my catalog. I talked to somebody else who said that exact person as well. I've actually, reached out to him to talk to him, side note wise, but it is so cool when you find that one person, you find that one, what we call Yoda, right? The whiskey Yoda out there, where you can go to him or her, depending, and say, hey, I need help with this, or I just have a question, and they're able and willing. And see, that's the cool thing that I've learned through all these episodes that I've done. The whiskey community is not about holding secrets. Like, you could make the same freaking whiskey at your distillery with the same mash, same ingredients. It doesn't matter. Same barrels. And it's going to taste inherently different than the way I make it, because all about distillation practice, all about your cuts, all about your terroir. Nobody likes to talk about terroir, but it's a thing, obviously. So it's really cool to see that nobody's holding anything back. Whenever you go to festivals, and I know you guys probably have a few that you go to, it's more about camaraderie than competition, right? It's not about that guy's taking my shelf space away from me. It's more about, you guys are cool as hell. I love what you're doing.
The whiskey industry is unlike any other industry, in my opinion, specifically on that front. And obviously, to your point, I could give someone our exact mash bill and exact, production process, and they wouldn't be able to replicate it. So you don't necessarily need to worry about that. But even stuff that is kind of private, and even stuff that the other distilleries, they could rip you off if they really tried. No one's really protective about that stuff. It's interesting. I mean, one thing that is really cool, especially the head of production at every distillery, we all talk a lot. I mean, we're all very tight knit. We run into each other constantly because we're all traveling the country to work with distributors and promote brands and stuff. So we interact a lot. As a matter of fact, next week I'll be in DC with 20 or 30 different distillers, and we'll all share secrets and help each other out. But absolutely, it's unlike any other industry in the sense that if I called Caitlin Bartlemeyer, if I called Joseph O'Sullivan or Ryan Negley or anyone like that, and I had a question on what should I do in the situation, they would be willing to tell me what they've done in the past, what's worked for them, even if it involves some pretty confidential and important information. Everyone's always willing to help each other, which is so cool.
Right, absolutely, and I mean, you're throwing some names there too. You're throwing some big hitters around, but that's what makes this so cool. And what I'm noticing in doing this show is the fact that it is such. I mean, obviously the United States is huge, but it is very tight knit community. Even though you're over here and they're way over there, and I know that a lot of my guys that are around me, like Moose at Andalusia, I know he talks to all of you guys so much. And it's so cool to hear, getting the feedback, hey, I did this thing. I don't know if it's going to work. Let's try it. And just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And it uplifts the entire community as a whole, I feel. So I got an off the wall one for you. I'm sorry, but what is your go-to drink when you're not drinking whiskey?
Ooh, my gotta be water.
Water. Yeah, absolutely. Drink water, guys.
My go-to, I honestly, for someone who runs a whiskey distillery and a winery, I am embarrassingly not very well versed in wine. It's something that that I'm trying to really start exploring more about, because it's really important. I obviously know a lot about wine casks and how to use them in the whiskey production process, but I do not know a lot about wine in general. And I have been recently starting to kind of loop back to that. I would like to really, really go deep down a rabbit hole of the wine world, specifically red wines, from all over the United States in particular, is what I would like to do. If we're going non-alcoholic stuff, I love my coffee. I like a nice black coffee from about 6 a.m. until noon. But yeah, if I'm drinking, it's weird. I know you said not whiskey, but I covered that. If I am drinking, I have worked in whiskey production pretty much my entire life. And so I'm also not very well versed on cocktails. I have always, having worked in whiskey production, I've always consumed whiskey neat, like my entire career. And so it's interesting for someone who has worked with alcohol my entire life, with cocktails and with wine. I have not really explored those categories because I've always been so focused on whiskey neat, and I'm trying to kind of loop back and become a little bit more well versed in both of those categories.
Well, and I mean, it kind of becomes a thing because like you're so in depth in your business, right? And you're trying to like create this profile that is inherently Cedar Ridge, but it's also a little bit of you, correct? So like that's I mean, and then so you're like taking, I mean, I know it's hard and people like kind of get kind of weird about this, but like, you have to take a couple samples home and like dive over them while while you're sitting around or whatever. So like you don't really get the chance, unfortunately, to like just enjoy a drink or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it feels like I hate to say it like this, but it kind of feels like work the entire time because you're like, man, I got to get this blend out or whatever, and you have to keep the process up. But like you like if you've never had a good Gold Rush or an excellent aged old fashioned or something like that. Like there's something to a cocktail, which I'm trying to get in more into cocktails as well. I can't take the sweetener as much, but anyway, that's beside the point. But there's so many things out there that like can change it up. And a lot of people, like you're saying with wine, like there's a lot of wine out there that's just, I mean, it's knocking it out of the park. And finding some cool wine that would actually make you a better whiskey maker and drinker. It's really cool to kind of go back to, I guess, the basics. Because if you look at Scotland, let's go way back 200 years or so more. They used wine casks because bourbon wasn't a thing back then. So they would pick wine casks, but they wouldn't just pick any wine cask. They would pick the best wine cask they could find. And so what are they having to do? They're having to drink the wine to figure out which one of the wine casks they want, which I know, again, everybody's like, oh, that's a hard job. But okay, so if I went into your home bar right now, what is the most surprising bottle on the shelf?
Ooh, man,
don't say Malort.
You mean the most surprising, like people wouldn't expect me to have that, or most surprising, like wow, that one really blew me away?
Both.
All right, well, I'll start with blew me away. The most surprising ones on my shelf are literally anything from Lost Lantern. Those guys, they have introduced me to so many distilleries that weren't on my radar originally, and everything they release is a 10 out of 10. They're so there you go. They are so good. Adam and Nora, industry legends. Absolutely. They are so good at traveling the country and finding the like diamonds in the rough of just incredible whiskey. Outside of that, I mean, I honestly, I don't know. You took Malort. It probably would be Malort. I'm pretty close to Chicago. I'm aligned with Chicago sports. My wife is from Chicago, so I got to go Malort. But
I get it.
There is some pretty unique stuff. I actually, here's a good answer. Sean Clown from Slipknot originally, he likes to kind of mess around in his garage, creating some cool like liqueurs and stuff like that. He gave me a literal mason jar full of it's like a dark red liquid. I don't even remember what it is, but it's freaking delicious. And he somehow nailed it. But that would probably be the most bizarre and unexpected thing that I have on my shelf at home is a miscellaneous bottle mason jar from the man clown himself.
Well, that's pretty out there, but that's also, it kind of shows you as a distiller, as a blender, like there's so much out there. Nothing is really off the table, right? Everything from having a bottle of wine or a aperitif or a absinthe or whatever, it's all there to promote what you guys are trying to do. So do you ever get whiskey fatigue? And if so, what do you drink? What do you drink to reset your palate? I know you mentioned coffee earlier, but is there something that you do to kind of reset your palate? Because I've done blind tastings for like the whiskey festivals and stuff like that, and it's difficult, man, when you're tasting through 50 different samples and sometimes hundreds. I know you guys, I talked to Emma over at Balcones, and she's like, sometimes we have 500 samples in front of us that we have to get through in the afternoon. How do you do it, and how do you combat that fatigue?
It's a really good question. And first of all, I'll say that Emma is amazing. I love Emma.
I love her.
But I definitely get whiskey fatigue. It's weird in this industry when you're in a position like mine, a master blender of any distillery in the country. Something that happens, by the way, is that people just randomly, constantly bring you samples of stuff that they want you to try. So I'll have someone I've never met say, "Hey, you got to try this. This is something I've been working on." I have unlimited amounts of these like little bottles that people just drop off. Just like insane amounts of them. So there's no end to the amount of stuff that I can try. Whether it's I'm working on a blend and my palate is fatigued, or if me myself, an even bigger problem, starts to get fatigued in the sense of burnout, and that does happen to me. It's tough because we have what is known as a cool job, and people assume that, because we have cool jobs and it's so fun and neat, that there really is no such thing as burnout. And it's quite the opposite, because we have cool jobs, we have to work very hard. You can almost never turn it off because there's always someone who wants your job. So, you have to always be on and always be going to stay in the position that you're in. And that can lead to significant burnout. As a matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking with our winemaker, Kent, about this. I said, "Kent, do you ever get so burnt out that you don't even want to drink wine?" Which, his profession is winemaking.
Right.
And he said, "Yes, absolutely." And I said, "Good, because I'm kind of there right now with whiskey." Around this time of the year, we've got so many things going on in August and September that I tend to get burnt out about this time of the year. And what I'll do at that point is, I kind of, at least at home, I try to completely cut it out and just leave it at work. Anything I drink that is whiskey is at work. And when I'm at home, I try to immerse myself, not only just in family life, which is always most important to me, but into a specific subject. As a matter of fact, last year when this happened, I went deep into researching the Roman Empire. Why? I don't know. I just needed my mind to focus on something specific that I could consume a lot of content on that wasn't whiskey. And it really, really helped me. And at some point over the next few weeks, I'm due to kind of hit that wall again. And I don't know what I'll kind of research this time, but I'll find a hobby or anything that I can just use to completely obsess over and focus on that for a while until I'm ready to get back into going, whiskey all day, every day, and things of that nature. So burnout is a real thing. Yep. Awesome.
Okay, so that kind of leads me into my next question. What is your guilty pleasure food pairing with whiskey that you've never admitted?
No, that I never admitted. Oh God, I don't know. I'm sure I've probably admitted this. I'm a big smoker of meat. I love smoking meat.
Amen.
Like on a Sunday, my kids are in sports right now and stuff, so we're always busy every day,
Yeah.
every night.
Yeah.
But every now and then we get like a Sunday afternoon where it's just quiet and we're hanging out, and I'll smoke up some ribs or something like that.
Mhm.
And usually with that, I'll have some whiskey. I know that's not out there. I don't know. I probably don't have an answer, a good one on that. I will say though that I'll pair it with just about anything. I think that there are things that it pairs well with, but there's not a lot of things it doesn't pair well with. You can enjoy it with a little bit of anything, and I'm definitely guilty of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a loaded question because at the same time, like you could drink it with anything, but then also you could just eat the food as well. So it's not like it's a necessarily have to have, it's not like you're trying to do like a whiskey and chocolate pairing or something like that. Those are fun. Don't get me wrong. But like at the end of the day, it's just like, man, I just want something. And then I just want to come out here, turn the grill on, and just relax. So what would be your whiskey of choice? And if you have multiple, that's okay. But like, what would be your whiskey of choice? It can be one of yours or another that you would pick. Let's say you're grilling some ribs or something like that.
If I'm going to grill ribs on a Sunday, what I would usually do with that, and I want to be careful because I am extremely loyal to American Single Malt. I mean. A lot of what I drink, throughout the week and with friends and stuff is going to be American Single Malt. But what I'm going to do is if I'm at home on like a Sunday, cooking up some ribs and I'm, just listening to the sounds of nature outside in beautiful Iowa, what I will usually do is sip on a scotch that I haven't had before as a way to kind of, once again, kind of reset and find a creative spark. Something like, oh wow, like that, I was expecting that. That kind of has my wheels turning. I'm big on I'm big on manipulating my own mind and resetting my own mind, especially when I get burnt out. And one way to do that is to try a single malt, that I haven't had before that might really get those wheels turning and get me excited to go back to work and kind of get back in the lab and create something. And so usually when I'm doing that, I will explore different scotches that I probably haven't had before. And once again, I have just an unlimited amount of these 1-2 ounce bottles that people drop off for me because they're amazing. And I'll just kind of start sampling through some of those when I'm at home with my family.
And I know you quoted Lost Lantern earlier, but like somebody that would be similar to that would be Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, right? Because now they're a little more expensive, obviously, but like getting a bottle of that and just opening up a 15-year-old Ben Romick that was finished in a Policardo cast. You're like, what? I've never heard of this before. I've never seen this. It's amazing. It's natural cast strength, non-chill filtered, all the things that we want. It's
exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And those are the things that like develop a palate after a while. As a whiskey sommelier myself, I know that like opening up your palate is the best thing to do, and blind sampling stuff and doing all the things to where you're like, oh, that tastes like Jim Beam. Well, guess what? It's not. It's not Jim Beam, okay? And so getting rid of that bias and doing all that and just expanding your palate other than because I can only understand with what you do in your job, you're drinking the same. And I hate to say it like this, because if I had your job, I'd be like, oh, this is fun. But like drinking the same thing every day, like I know you make a bourbon, a rye, a single malt, all the things, but like drinking those same things, not day in, day out, but day in, day out, to where you're like, okay, I know this profile, I know this portfolio. I'm kind of getting burnt out on it, not in a bad way, but like it's just when you do it all day, every day, it becomes monotonous at a certain point. So that kind of puts me into this mindset. If you could only listen to one band while working in the distillery, who is blasting through the speakers?
I can definitely answer that, and I think my whole team can. That I for a while people were annoyed with how much I listened to Led Zeppelin while blending whiskey.
Let's go. That's perfect.
and don't get me wrong. I definitely switched up. depending on the type of blend I'm doing and what type of mood I'm in. But you can't go wrong with Led Zeppelin when you're moving barrels around, dumping them. One of my favorite things to do is, got Led Zeppelin on the background, and I open a barrel that, say it's even just, it's a 5-year-old barrel or whatever. I pop open the bung and I think, 5 years ago, 5 years ago, I only had 2 kids. Now I have 3. 5 years ago, my office was over there and now it's here. And I just, there's something very beautiful about that process and having Led Zeppelin on the background, and it's really fun. I love doing that in particular.
Absolutely. Okay, so that leads me to my next question, which those of you who are watching this on video will see your background isn't covered in whiskey; it's covered in graphs and spreadsheets. How much of your life these days is in a graph and a spreadsheet and doing whatever else, and not actually in the distillery doing the distilling part?
So it's a really good question, and it's important for people to understand that, especially when there are so many distilleries out there and they're growing now. Things definitely change on that front for people that are in this profession. And for me in particular, it's changed a lot, and it's kind of starting to change again right now. But I'm definitely not in the distillery very often. Like I said, we've got a distillery manager named John Rupp who oversees a team of 3 distillers that go around the clock. I am not needed in there. My role there would be, if I want to tweak the mash bills, I'll tweak it, and then they'll do that accordingly. If I'm the one who determines the production schedule, so I do have graphs behind me that say that this week we're mashing bourbon, we're finishing up distilling the single malt from the week prior, and 3 weeks from now we're going to switch over to project whatever. So I've got those graphs and charts behind me. I've also got long lists that I printed out of barrels that we need to pull for various projects. So there is a lot of office work for me, and a lot of it is more so planning. There's just so much planning in this industry, especially when things are busy and things are cranking, which is good. I will also say that an area that I'm getting out of a little bit finally, which is amazing, and I have to thank our CFO, Andy, for doing this for me. But for a long time, a huge part of my job was doing all of our federal reports, tracking all of our inventory. People have no idea the undertaking that is. We are legally required to be able to tell the TTB down to 1/10 of 1 proof gallon how much alcohol is on this property, and that's insane. I mean, wow. to track that. So we have so many dashboards, so many spreadsheets and inventory keeping systems. We need to track every bottle that we ship out. The ones that we export are different from the ones that we sell to Texas, and those are different from the ones that we sell to our own tasting room. They're all tracked separately. So there is so much to track here, and luckily our CFO is taking a lot of that off my plate, so that I can spend more of my time doing what I would say I need to be doing, and what our directors would generally agree I need to be doing, and that is blending whiskey, managing our operations team, and then getting more face-to-face time with our consumers. So I'm getting freed up to be able to travel a little bit more and educate people in whatever state I might be going to on what Cedar Ridge is. And that's really valuable and really important. So a lot of office stuff, like you said, a lot of charts and graphs behind me, but we are becoming more strategic on how to, for that stuff to take up a little less of my time so I can do what's going to contribute to the future of the company.
Absolutely. Because I mean, it's not all about that, right? It's also about, like you're saying, getting out in the community and being the, the proud company that you are. And so you've talked multiple times tonight about your crew. And before I get into my next question, I just wanted to shout out your crew. And if you want to talk a little bit about them, how many people do you have proper working in the distillery, especially, and any special people you want to shout out or anything like that, just please do it right now, because I know it's a vital part to your whiskey making family. It really is, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that, because I don't normally get to when I do stuff like this. The team that I run is
invaluable. I am so incredibly proud of this team. I was talking about this with the rest of our crew, like our whole company wide meeting recently. I'm really proud of the fact in particular that almost everyone on our operations team at this point has been here for 5 years. And we now have 3 people who have been here for 10 years. And that's incredible. To keep a team intact that long is so special, because at this point we kind of know, we can anticipate each other's moves. We know what the other person's thinking. We can just operate better because we've worked with one another for so long. We're family at this point. So, I have 11 positions. One of them is currently open that we're in the process of filling. So 11 people that work in Cedar Ridge operations. Our company-wide staff is a little over 55 people, half of which are part-time. But the operations team is 11 full-time roles. And I talked a little bit about Kent. He's our winemaker and our vineyard manager, one of the most skilled people I've ever met in my life. But then we have a few other managers. We've got Dave, our warehouse manager. His job is to move barrels from point A to point B. And I think people don't really think about that. There is so much barrel movement on every single daily basis. I mean, every single day we're preparing to bottle something, and the barrels have to be pulled for that. And every single day we're producing more whiskey, and those barrels have to be racked and put away. And so Dave is our warehouse manager, and he, in addition to that stuff, he oversees fulfilling all of our POs, all the shipping and receiving. An incredibly busy guy, valuable and important role. We've got our packaging manager, who is Lauren. Lauren's been with the company for over 5 years now, and I would be shocked if there's a better packaging manager in the United States. She's incredible at what she does. We use so many different bottle shapes, so many different label designs. It takes someone who's really familiar with that equipment to constantly be reconfiguring it and planning all of that out. She's really good at it. We've got a guy named Jeremy who does all of our barrel fills. In addition to being our assistant packaging manager, he's in charge of making sure that we hit our barrel quotas every month. So while our distillers are working around the clock, he has to make sure that when he's not on the packaging line, that for instance, this month we need to fill 130 barrels. Our financial forecast is built around that. And Jeremy's job is to make sure that those 130 barrels get filled. I've mentioned John. John is our distillery manager who runs a team of distillers that work around the clock. We've got Anderson, Matt, and we've got Max, who's working night shift right now. So those are the 3 that are working with John to do our distilling day in, day out. And that we have a couple other part-time people that are helping in packaging that are incredible as well. So yeah, this team, it really is a huge asset. And I would even argue a differentiator. The fact that we have been able to stay intact as a group for so long, it's a game changer for us.
Absolutely. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you have to, and this is a have to, and this is coming from somebody who is self-employed, one person business, right? You have to learn to delegate. Because if you try and take on everything for yourself, you're going to die at an early age, because you're going to be so stressed out that you can't even take care of it all, because you can't be at 2 places at once. As much as you want to be, you can't be. So you have to put this fire out before you start working on that one. And so when you are able to delegate and have good people in the roles that need to be there, it just goes to show a good company structure. And I feel like that's what you guys are presenting out there. And obviously you guys have been doing it for a minute. You know what you're doing at this point. So I have another strange one for you, but it's not too bad. What is the weirdest experiment that you've tried at Cedar Ridge that never saw the light of day?
Oh man, we have 2 that are quite well known at this point. Well known by people who have come to this distillery and asked this question, and it's something that people ask pretty frequently. I mentioned again that we like to experiment and explore because it kind of helps us find our next big thing. I mean, at one point, we were experimenting and exploring with single malt, and it ended up being this huge thing that we really got into and pursued heavily. So we're always exploring. Well, we've done a couple that I hate, and one of them is we at one point, I again, tight knit team. I leaned on I've leaned on our team to help pitch some ideas here and there, and a guy named Mike, who's no longer with the company. He's one of the positions that I was talking that's currently being filled. Mike's a great dude, one of the better employees we've ever had, and he just had to relocate, unfortunately. But he wanted to bring in some Amburana casks, which I am not necessarily a fan of. But Mike has had many good ideas along the way, and he just kind of keeps poking me until we eventually do it. And he's hit several home runs from doing them. I should mention that because this one was not. This one, he convinced me finally to bring in 4 Amburana casks, and I filled 2 of them with bourbon and 2 of them with single malt. And I have no idea what we're ever going to do with them. I dislike them so much. Amburana is such like a potent barrel to work with. Is to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. Forget the flavor profile. If you stand within 15 feet of the barrel, you can smell the barrel. That's like how strong the aroma is from that barrel wood. And we put bourbon and single malt into them. And I think I did that probably 16 months ago. And by the way, this was whiskey that was done. I was just finishing it. So this like 5-year-old stuff. And then we transferred it into these casks about 16 months ago. Well, Amburana is, that's like something that you want in the barrel for like 2 weeks. You don't need it in there very long because it's fast acting. And I didn't like it, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. So I just left it in there. And so now we've got 2 barrels of bourbon and 2 barrels of single malt. I have no idea what we're ever going to do with them, but they're like Amburana on steroids times 10 is the way that I would describe it. So, which some people really like. The other one is a little over 10 years ago now. This is a 10-year-old barrel. We did some mesquite malt. People know peated. Some people know mesquite. A really good example is like Whiskey's Del Bac or Santa Fe Spirits. They knocked that out of the park. We did not. We mashed a little bit of mesquite, and I wasn't here when that happened, so I don't really know how it was done, but it didn't turn out great. And it's now 10 years old, and it's still in the barrel because I'm not sure what to do with it. But we have a whiskey community that visits here every now and then, and we tasted that. They didn't like it. And what I told them is, just to show you how cool single malt is, eventually you're going to come back, and I'm going to make sure that that's your favorite barrel on this property. I'm going to show you that I can shape it. And so I haven't gotten around to it yet, but eventually I'm going to take that mesquite malt 10-year-old barrel and transfer it into something, maybe a sherry, and might eventually even have to blend it a little bit. But eventually my goal is to take that barrel that is underwhelming and that I don't particularly care for, and make it something that is really awesome. So over the years, that's a goal that I'm going to chip away at.
I mean, because like Whiskey Del Bac, they just kind of make it look easy, don't they? They're just like, we just do the thing. That's all we do. We do the thing.
They make it look so easy. Mark, I think, is one of the best in the game, and he can make an amazing mesquite whiskey. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So okay, I got 2 more questions, and then I'll let you go. Outside of your whiskey community, like doing what you're doing at Cedar Ridge, what is your favorite way to connect to Iowa's culture?
Oh man, favorite way. I love going through small town Iowa. Various small towns in the state of Iowa. One, because I mentioned earlier, Iowa in itself is kind of known as a flyover state. Yeah. Well, within Iowa, we have, some really cool cities. Obviously, Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, which is where I live. But Des Moines, if you haven't been to Des Moines' incredible. There's other ones like, Davenport, Waterloo, Sioux City, you name it. But even in Iowa, Iowans kind of have like flyover areas, where Iowans themselves don't really get to. I'll give where my family's from, a small town called Winthrop, Iowa. It's a town of 600 people. It is my favorite place on planet Earth. It it's a small town, like I said, of 600 people, and it's one where when you drive by it, you wave to everyone. It doesn't matter who you wave, and if you don't, it's like, what do they mean by that? Why aren't they waving? It's just incredibly friendly. It reminds me, of what I imagine life would have been in the 1960s or maybe even 1970s. There are these really cool pockets in the state of Iowa that have preserved, kind of the old way of life, which I think it's really important for people to to get to those places and experience them, regardless of what state you live in, just because we live in such a fast-paced world now. Everything's just constantly going, and everyone needs more and more from you. Well, it's nice to eventually just kind of go to a small town and talk to the people there, try a restaurant there, just hang out and kind of reset and just, look at the scenery and think, okay, this is what real life is and what it's supposed to be, and just calm down. So the way that I kind of connect in the state of Iowa is I go to small towns. If, I get a weekend with my family, I love to just get in the car and drive to them and drive through them and check them out. And, love going to every small town kind of has like an annual fair, it'll be Winthrop Days or Independence Days or whatever. And I like going to those and just seeing what those little towns are all about. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from personal experience in my small town here in Texas, we have the oldest county fair in the state, right? So it's a big deal. So like it's a thing to go to the fair. Like that's where you go to find family and see live bands and stuff like that. It's just a really cool thing to like go out and find culture in the world, because it's so easy to stand behind this screen, and I'm talking to myself and you both, to stand behind the screen and just kind of preach and say, hey, we're doing a cool thing over here. But until you get out in the culture and people know you and they know about you and you're doing the things. And I know you guys over at Cedar Ridge, you're trying to get your name out there as much as possible. And like I said, in my niche, you guys are top notch, but like there's always room for more, right? And so like the more outsourcing, the more outreach, not outsourcing, the more outreach you get, the better it is, not only for your soul personally, but for your brand as well, because people are eventually going to say, hey, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll say, hey, no, I'm the dude from Cedar Ridge, like you'll usually get there, and then you'll be talking about whiskey, because that's normally how it happens to be. You're like, hey, you're we don't talk about it yet. I'm on vacation. It's fine. But it's kind of the thing. But at the same time, like it's super cool that like you can just kind of go to these places and just kind of decompress from it, get your, kind of refill your tank a little bit, and then go back and do what you're really, I feel like it's a passion at this point with you, and Cedar Ridge as well, where you guys have been doing it for a minute, but like, I feel like you're just getting your stride and you're just getting up and saying, hey, we're here. We're not one of these ones that falls off in 2 years. We're here. We're here to stay, and we're producing some really cool stuff. Because I've had a couple of offerings from you guys in the past, and everything that I've had so far has been top notch, especially, and I mean, this is tooting their horn as well, but especially the Lost Lantern picks that I've had have been absolutely phenomenal. I think I got the sherry finish, the fully, anyway, whatever. It was so good. Like it was so good. And then I have the 100% wheat whiskey. Like, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, so it's just getting out there, doing the thing, and trying some cool whiskey. And you guys are craft through and through, but like at the same time, you don't act like it. Like you act, I mean that in the best way. Like you act like, how do I say it? How do I say it the right way without sounding snarky towards you? I'm not trying to at all. Like,
I will not be offended. I will be offended.
No. Like you act like you're a commonplace name, like some of the legacy brands, which is really cool, because like that's how it should be. Like you should be able to go into any conversation, and Cedar Ridge should be able to be thrown in there with all of the big guys, right? And I think that's how it needs to be, and that's how it is in my circles. But that doesn't mean every circle's like that. They're over there, drinking their Eagle Rare, and they're fine. But that's beside the point. I digress. I'm getting off topic, and you're making it worse for me. No, okay. So before we go, why don't you tell everybody where we can find Cedar Ridge, where we can buy bottles? I know you guys have some people you're working with as well, and you're in a lot of states, so I mean, there's a lot of people can get whiskey online. So let us know a little bit about that, and then any social media you guys have. Go from there.
Yeah, so check us out on Cedar Ridge Whiskey, cedarridgedistillery.com, either one of them. You can buy pretty much anything that we do online at our website. Check us out though in retail environment, the actual stores of the world. Regardless of what state you live in, go check us out on the shelf. That's the best place to support us. We're trying to develop distribution nationwide, and so start there. But if you can't find anything in your state, check us out online. We offer pretty much everything there as well. As far as social media goes, we're Cedar Ridge, Iowa on most pages, most notably Instagram, Facebook. If you want to see a little bit more of the behind the scenes stuff, I do manage my own Instagram page at Murphy Quint. So check that out. Just some fun videos from behind the scenes of what we're doing day to day. And yeah, check us out online.
Yeah, that is so cool. And you're in other countries as well, correct?
Yes, sir. We do export to Canada, Japan. We have sent stuff to plenty of stuff to Australia. We've sent some ones out there to unexpected places like Lithuania.
Oh wow!
So we've exported a few times. A lot of the stuff has been Slipknot focused originally, but
okay.
These days we're getting a lot more requests for quintessential abroad as well.
That is awesome. And we really didn't talk about. I mean, we kind of did because obviously the quintessential is kind of like your baby, I guess. Yeah, we can get into that on another episode, I guess. But I totally forgot about that. But it is so cool to see what you guys are doing and what you guys are producing, and not only you guys, but you as well, because I can see your passion into this. And even though you were drug into it, kicking and screaming, you were able to rise up from that and turn it into a well-oiled machine, which is what it is at this point. And I congratulate you for that, because that is super cool. I'm super proud to be a small factor in the Cedar Ridge story, and it's super cool to have you come on here and tell your part of the story as well. I can't thank you enough for hanging out with me. It has been a blast. Hang on, I want to speak with you after, but guys, like if you enjoy this type of content, and I know you do because you're listening right now or watching, just make sure you follow, like, subscribe, do all the things to help the algorithm, because they're fighting us right now. They are literally fighting us. Whiskey is getting a down tick. I don't know what the deal is, but like, we're over here trying to do cool stuff and they're fighting against us. But anyway, y'all be good. And until next time, keep your spirits up. Peace out.
Thank you.